we find here in that story, God allowing Joseph to also pass through trials, pass through tests until the wife of Potiphar admired Joseph, and actually he was entered into a test. Then now, since Joseph chose a wise decision, that where he said and he rejected actually to go in with that wife, he chose actually to remain faithful before the Lord and before his employer. Then now we find after now Joseph did that wise or wisdom choice in his life, then we find at the end God, in other words, we find at the end actually God even exalted him. He exalted him until he became the chief captain in that land of Egypt, or in that land of exile. And as he was the chief captain, we find that even Pharaoh himself even requested him actually to teach his elders, to teach his co-workers, his elders, about the wisdom that he had. Because when Pharaoh himself, when he looked upon Joseph, he saw wisdom in Joseph. But this wisdom Joseph had, it is true. It is true God himself had given him, because in other words, he actually learned that wisdom of God. And apart from learning that wisdom of God, he applied that wisdom in his life, which is also the same lesson that we can learn as young people. When we choose to learn the wisdom of God, to understand the wisdom of God, the way the psalmists, they were requesting before God as a song or as a prayer, that teach us to number our days, that we may apply that wisdom upon our hearts. It is also should be also the same prayer as young people, that we should pray before the Lord, despite we are passing through so many challenges. We can pass through so many problems. The same way that Joseph looked at himself, that he was in exile, and he was so passing through so many challenges. He was even imprisoned. He was even a child. He was afflicted, and he was even mistreated. The same way, even as young people, we can look upon our lives and we see that whenever we are in school, it is like we are in prison. We are not given freedom. We are not given done well. We are afflicted. We can see ourselves in such a situation. But in other words, the good news is, or the good thing is, that God has good plans upon our lives. Can we say amen? And that is actually the greatest thing, or the desire that God himself has before us. Then now that is why when you read in that book of Psalms 105, when you read verse 23, that is Psalms 105, verse 23, it says, verse 23, it says this, Israel. Now verse 22, we can start from there. To bind his princes at his pleasure and teach the senators wisdom, Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham. So in other words, that is actually what the psalmists, they record and say, now through this, the wisdom of Joseph, through the application, practical application of that wisdom that God has bestowed upon Joseph, we find in that way Joseph was exalted, the first thing. Even Pharaoh, who was a pagan, actually commanded or declared that Joseph should teach even his ministers that wisdom, his princes. He should teach them, his leaders, teach them that wisdom also, so that he can also train their people to have the same wisdom that he had. And apart from that, we find that even he also saved his people, that is Israel. That is why when now that drought which came upon, and those are great lessons that we can learn what the psalmists they are teaching us, that whenever we are to seek the wisdom of God and apply it upon our lives. So the way we can apply the wisdom of upon our lives is actually to praise God, to do His will, to obey His commandments, and also to walk according the directions that He is teaching us. Then now when we do that one, whenever our neighbors, whenever our friends, whenever they will see us, in other words, they will actually also admire that wisdom. They will also feel also to learn more of that. And in that process, we shall exalt our God whenever we are, and the name of the Lord shall be praised. And when God will see all those great works, then now He will bestow His blessings upon our lives. And that is why now the psalmists also, they tell us now, some of those blessings that we receive, it is like we shall prosper in whatever we do. That is why even the Bible records that Joseph, whatever he was doing, he prospered. Because he feared God, he had the wisdom of heavenly wisdom, and he lived as a godly man, as a godly person, despite the challenges he was passing through. So which means if we have that wisdom of God and we apply that wisdom of God in that knowledge that we are having it here earthly on earth, we shall prosper. We shall prosper in our biology. We shall prosper in our chemistry if we accept that wisdom of God. If we accept that grace of God that He has given us, and He will lead us in all the days of our lives. And may God help us, give us power, help us with the opportunity and wisdom so that we can live according to the heavenly wisdom, so that we can apply that wisdom upon our lives, that we remember that we are to live, and actually we should be joyful. We shall rejoice as we live in this earth, or as we live in the days of challenges that we are in. Lastly, I like reading one of the books whenever I am in a learning institution. There is this book which is recorded by Ellen White. That is the book called Education. The book called Education is actually one of the books which are compiled, the Seventh-day Advent believe, were recorded by a prophetess. Now, when you read in that book of Education, that is page 4, page 13, paragraph 1, it talks about true education. It says, true education means more than pursuit of certain course of study. So in other words, it says, for us to have a true education, not only pursuing our chemistry, pursuing our CRE, pursuing our physics, pursuing our mathematics, pursuing our economics, in whatever study of education we are pursuing, true education is more than that. Then he continues to say, it means, that is what it means by true education, or having true wisdom. By having true wisdom, it says, it means more than preparation for the life that now is. It has to do with the whole thing and with the whole period of existence possible to man. It is the harmonious development of physical, mental, spiritual powers, and it prepares the